either. He has a very impressive biography, but he asked me not to share it. I guess I could best summarize it by saying he is the expert who resides at the intersection of leadership and information technology. Please join me in welcoming our host.
Thank you. Test 1, test 2. Test 1. Microphone check. How are we doing tonight? What a great day. What a good-looking crowd. Good grief. What an honor to be here. We are going to get my presentation put up in just a moment. But as we prepare,
Bret, they can't hear you in the back.
yeah, I don't know that the microphone. Microphone. And we're on. And they're off. All right. Thank you so much. My name is Bret Anderson, Vice President of Marketing and Development for NetGain Technologies. Got a little switch situation here. So you've been hearing a lot about the technology revolution, probably at a point in which you kind of get numb to it. You hear it, the IT is changing everything. Banking is going to change overnight. And then days, weeks, months go by and we see very little change. So what I'd like to share with you today is it is coming, and it's coming quick. And the exponential change we're about to see in the next 20 years will affect everybody in this room. What's your name?
Michael.
How about Michael here? Way to go, Michael.
Your mouse isn't showing up on the screen.
Why is that?
I have no clue.
Are we in?
I think your computer may have froze. Well, let me see if I can do this. Yeah, I think your computer froze.
Wouldn't you know, a conversation about technology wouldn't be appropriate with a little technology disruption. And is this the...
Yeah, if you press down on the top and then pull it out.
Yeah, so far so good, right? Captivative audience. Here we go. Let's see. Yeah, let's use that if we can.
Well, I can try one more thing.
Let's try one more thing. We've got one more workaround. Oh yeah, that's better.
I didn't notice that this was on
Oh
the
yeah.
back.
But still, I don't think that's gonna adjust.
The older it is, the better it works.
Good grief. Let's try the original.
Go back to the other laptop.
Okay. And you have a flash drive this is on, or?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
No, I don't. Trick question. Of the banks involved, who has implemented an Internet of Things solution? All right, next question. Who has ATMs? That is a Woodford Reserve. ATMs are the Internet of Things. Banks have been involved in Internet of Things for a long time. Yep.
There should be a slide advancer somewhere.
So, pardon the disruption. We all have to deal with disruptions in life and in business and in presentations to the community bankers of West Virginia. Thank you for being patient for me. We do research and studies and surveys on people just like you year after year. Leadership. We ask them, what do you want professionally? Surveys going back 7-8 years, and there's common denominators in these responses. And they say, I want net income growth. I want asset growth. I want return on assets. I want operational efficiencies and happy customers. As a common denominator from bank to bank, these answers resonate. Personally, in the same surveys, we asked, what do you want professionally, and what do you want personally? Professionally, those answers have a common denominator. Personally, those answers have a common denominator as well. Meaningful work. What I do, I want to matter. I want personal health. I want my family to be happy. And then they say it in a way maybe a little bit different each time. They say, I want my work to be remembered. I want to build something that lasts beyond me. We call that leave a legacy. All right, studied sociology in college. I look at groups and patterns of people, and I have an informal survey I'd like to conduct. Raise your hand if you were born after 1980. I predicted less than 90%. Who was the first person who raised their hand? First person who raised their hand.
Thank you.
Typically, leadership in banking is a late baby boomer, early Gen Xer. Typically, leadership in banking is someone who grew up not familiar with technology. So, as the leader goes, so goes the organization. We find most of the individuals leading banks today are somewhere between 45 and 65. Now we know bank leaders tend to not retire until they're 80 or so. But this is going to make more sense down the road. So the average age of the bank CEO is 57 years old. Yet what's interesting is they're responsible now for leading their organizations through the digital revolution. It's a major change in what's going on. And your choice is, do I embrace it? Or do I think I can get out of business? Can I retire? We're in a small community. It's not really going to affect us that much. Maybe I don't have to embrace it. Maybe I can resist it. And as a result, you've got the Rogers diffusion of innovation curve. What's important about this? Well, banks tend to be conservative. Bank leaders tend to be not technical. And so as a result, the organization and the industry tends to be slow in adoption of new IT, be slow in innovation. But what does that really mean? I mean, what's the big deal? Well, according to MIT Sloan Management Institute research, innovative companies generate 26% more profit than laggards across all industries. 26% more profit, 9% more revenue, and the valuation of their organizations are significantly higher. Pays to be innovative. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to jump from a laggard status to a innovator or early adopter status, but you want to drive your organization. As the leader goes, so goes the organization. As a leader, Are you adopting technology personally? And as a leader, you're probably saying, we've seen this before. We've seen disruption throughout time. You think, I don't know, 8,000, 10,000 years ago when the hunter-gatherer started to be able to farm and agriculture was born, and people didn't have to necessarily move around as much. It changed over 8,000 years or so to about 1650 when crop rotation innovations occurred. The ability to seed and harvest evolved. The ability to store and distribute, the technology associated with that advanced dramatically from about 1650 to 1850. And then the Industrial Revolution, that untethered manufacturing from a river as a source of power. 1781, James Watt invents the steam-powered motor. You're able to then create disciplines in manufacturing, and manufacturing explodes. So from hunting and gathering to 90+% of the population, of human population being farmers, to today less than 2%. So you're looking at that inflection point of human population. I just read a statistic that it was from the UN on the global population trend. They were expecting around 2013 we would hit 7 billion people on the planet. Well, that happened in 2011. They're expecting 2023, and this report came out in 1998, that by 2023 we would hit 8 billion people on the planet. Well, we're about 7.5 according to worldometer.com, measuring the population on the planet. We're accelerating at speeds and inflection points we've not predicted. But this one's different. This time is different. Thomas Frey, the #1 searched Google futurist, said the last 25 years created more innovation than the planet has seen combined. The last 25 years. When you think about it, you really think about it, what's happened in the last 25 years with the internet, iPhone, things that we take for granted today. Things we say, these new technologies that we're introducing, I really don't want to, I think it's kind of scary. But think about where we've come in just the last 25 years. He says in the next 20, we'll see more exponential change than ever. With machine learning and computer learning. The presenter just before us was talking about artificial intelligence, AI. Amazing, amazing stuff. We're right on the cusp of it. And you have a great opportunity to still be ahead of the trend. So disruption's not new. In 2005, Procter & Gamble bought Gillette for $56 billion. What they bought them for was to engage and participate in the $33 billion a year consumable shaving industry. So they bought a premium brand and, most importantly, shelf space at every grocery store, every Walmart, every Walgreens, every CVS, every Rite Aid. Eye level, anybody who's familiar with the industry, the shelf facing is the gold standard. It is expensive to get involved. So Procter & Gamble in one fell swoop, $156 billion fell swoop, is right front and center. Well, last year, Unilever, Procter & Gamble's big competitor, bought Dollar Shave Club for a $55 billion discount. For $1 billion, they got into the direct-to-consumer disposable shaving industry. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, the shaving in this category didn't exist. Today it represents about 8%, or about $2 billion with a trajectory straight up. Innovative pays. The old way was just disrupted by an entirely go-to-market strategy. Everybody's heard about Uber. It came out in about 2009. And what you see here is the Medallion Financial Corp. They lend money to taxi companies. In New York, a few years ago, to drive a cab, you need to purchase a medallion, about $1 million. Today, it's probably $500,000, half that. Medallion Financial Corp peaked at about $17.75, 74 cents per share in 2013. 4 years after Uber had already been out? So what's significant about 2013? Well, Uber came out with Uber XL, which lowered the standards and barriers to become an Uber driver. So about 2 weeks and a little digital paper transferring back and forth, you can be an Uber driver too. Wall Street took a look at that and said, I don't know, I'm gonna invest in the tradition. I think the technology wins here. Citibank just reported 50 to 80% of their loans to taxi companies appeared to be in default. And then you take that and then add artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, 3D printing, big data, and you think, things are about to change rapidly. And it's not just one of these things. It's these things combined. And it starts with big data. If data scientist, the position for your organization, isn't on your horizon, someone to understand and create structure out of the unstructured data in your organization about your consumers, you know who's doing it? Is the big banks. JP Morgan, Citi, investing billions. The last bastion of the community banking environment was, I know my customer better than anybody. Until artificial intelligence scans all of their social information, social networking information, understands who they are as well or better than you, and predicts what they'll do next based on their habits online. It's a tough one to battle against. The home field advantage is starting to level off. And it's not just artificial intelligence, it's big data combined with machine learning, combined with Internet of Things and artificial intelligence. And we're on this inflection point where we've been hearing about it. We've been hearing about it. And we're there. So, fintech, financial technology, something else we've been hearing about. And in the great state of West Virginia, what does that mean for me? Well, it means that what I used to be able to count on is my home field advantage is now starting to level off. How can I differentiate myself? It's interesting, fintech. I'm in marketing. I've been studying marketing a long, long time. Well, there's now MarTech. Regulation with technology is involved called RegTech. Anybody can guess the insurance and technology combination of insurance and technology? InsurTech. There are 12 InsurTech companies. 2 years ago, there were 0. Lemonade and Oscar, InsurTech. There are 9 regulation technology companies. 2 years ago, there were 0. Investment in fintech has skyrocketed. $5.5 billion in 2005 to $79 billion just a year ago. And this investment, you see, I've researched a lot of this investment level. And this investment level seems to be flattening. But what they're saying is the investment in fintech, financial technology firms, has flattened. But what they're not saying is the financial technology firms are now using AI, and now they're saying AI investment is going up, but the fintech investment has flattened. Dramatic changes. 2005 to 2016, the number of fintech companies gone up dramatically. There were just a couple of thousand. Last year there was about 8,000. Now there's about 12,000. Mostly startups. And then you look at the segments. I mentioned RegTech, InsurTech. Well, on the left side, there are a lot of technologies that many of you and your organizations and your banks and community banks are using today. Online and mobile banking, marketplace lending platforms, and payment technology are things that you're probably familiar with. But my question is yours better than your competition? And how do you know? How do you know it's better? I was driving here and heard a local, I'll call it a community bank commercial about Apple Pay. Now we now accept and work with Apple Pay at a community bank. Things are changing. On the left, it's very interesting. Vanguard uses robo-advisors. In 2 years, they generated $64 billion using robo-advisors. Combined, it's a hybrid. Robo-advisor is an algorithm using smart, big data, machine learning, determining trends, combined with human interaction, makes it 4 times the largest robo-advisor in the world. Very, very successful. In virtual currency, who's heard of Bitcoin? Everybody's heard of Bitcoin, right? A couple of years ago, when ransomware started appearing, and somebody would get infected and their data would get held hostage, we would come in and determine what to do next. Our organization would go, well, you have good backup, so that's good. Let's pay the ransom, get your stuff unlocked, hopefully, and move forward from there. And those Bitcoins were around $300. And you need a Bitcoin broker. It all felt kind of weird. Today, anybody know what the Bitcoin is being traded for per coin? Close. $2,700. $2,700. However, just for trying, got a maker's mark drink with your name on it. Thank you. $2,700. I thought the Bitcoin was going to be the MySpace of cryptocurrency. Today there's Zcash, there's, guess who brought this to bear? Citicoin. There's Standard Utility Coin. The 4 largest banks in the world came together and created their own cryptocurrency. Interesting stuff. Banks are a trusted intermediary. It's important. If I don't trust the process, then nothing has value. Banks are an important part. Virtual currency and blockchain start to change that a little bit. And if I'm in banking, I am looking at blockchain, trying to understand what's happening next. I'm creating a committee of people whose job it is to determine what's our bank's play here. Because we're the trusted intermediary. Centuries upon centuries, the bank has been the central place for that interaction, that transaction. Things like blockchain, not only in banking, but healthcare and almost everything else you can think about, is going to play a role. Blockchain is extraordinarily difficult to explain. I spend hours and hours and hours reviewing it, trying to find simple ways to describe it. Still challenging. If I'm a leader in an organization where I'm a trusted intermediary, I am trying to understand everything I can about blockchain and how our organization can participate. Some surveys. This is a survey that was conducted in Q3 last year. 75 people, 50 of them were community bank leaders, 25% of them were venture capitalists, and 25% were fintech organizations. So of those people, they were asked, would you say that fintech is mostly a partner or threat to the community bank? And you see, in 54% says it's a potential partner. 27%, it could be both. Now, in the innovation curve, if you're way on the laggard side and you're not sure where fintech plays, what role that's going to play in the future, you need to start moving along the line and start determining what your relationship will be with fintech. If you're not sure, find out. Pick a side and go after it aggressively as a conservative bank can. Bank respondents, which type of fintech services are you already using? Remember the list on the left? Mobile banking, online banking services, payment technology, things we're using very commonly. Online consumer lending platforms, small business lending platforms. I'm looking at creating an exploratory committee of non-technology and technology people for my organization to determine where are we going to be. Now, I feel like I am in a small community where we have great relationships. Why do I have to pay attention to this? Because your consumers are changing too. Your consumers are changing too. How soon do you think blockchain technology will be adopted by regional and community banks? 62% says after 18 months. I might put a goal to determine my role as a community bank in West Virginia in 16 months so that I could be a little more innovative than the competition. So we find ourselves at a crossroad. Do I accept and embrace this technology? I'm in a conservative industry requiring tons of trust, tons of regulation. Or do I resist it, thinking it's just a fad and it's going to pass me by? I think about personally, and I'm going to ask, looking to reward someone who can share a technology they resisted and now they use every day. When texting first came out a decade and a half ago, I said, if you want to talk to me, call me. Don't text me. Now I text every day. I asked my dad, Dad, tell me a technology you resisted and now you use every day. He said the microwave oven. When it first came out, I didn't trust it. I didn't trust it. 99% of his meals are prepared via microwave today. Anybody want to share? I'm going to make it worth your while. A technology. I met a CIO of a large organization a few weeks ago. I asked him the same question. You're going to wish you participated. He said, I resisted pay at the pump. I thought it was informal. I have a great relationship with my gas station, the local one where I always fill up. I walk in and I have the pleasantries. And I think it's bad business. The gas station would eliminate all of those quick buys, all of those convenience buys, those last minute decisions to buy candy and stuff right there at the counter. I'm going to resist pay at the pump. Now, if you have to pay inside, what a hassle. Does somebody else want to share a technology? I'm going to move on. You're going to wish you participated. All right. So I'll just put this right here. It won't be long when we'll be looking at the technology coming out today going, I resisted, and now I use it every day. I resisted, I thought it was creepy, and now it's vital to my life. I like it the old way, when I have to go out and gather wood to stay warm. I want old-fashioned values. Maybe we can repurpose this later. Last chance, anyone want to admit? Yes? Bluetooth. You resisted Bluetooth? That doesn't count. All right, come on up, come on up. See how easy this is, folks? Come on. Now you're going to have to give this to her because she was the one resisting. Okay, perfect. So big change is coming. What's your strategy? As an older leader in a conservative banking organization, I might be able to just hold off and let this pass. But instead of beating your head up against your computer, keeping your head in the sand, this is tough stuff. I get it. I'm a late adopter of IT myself. Graduated from University of Missouri. Don't hold that against me. I'm a big fan of Trayvon Austin, so I hope that helps. I studied sociology, marketing, and writing. And 25 years ago, we had computer labs on campus. Nobody had their own PC. Nobody had personal. So I find it challenging to embrace it personally. But in my 25 years since college and my last 10 years at NetGain, I'm on the executive team. I meet business owners, bank leaders on a regular basis who have struggled trying to get their arms around technology, who've spent lots of money building infrastructures and never realized their ROI. I've also seen bank leaders embrace technology and start to gain competitive advantages and truly gain the lift and that turbo boost that technology brings your organization. And from all of this process, I developed a conservative 4-step plan for conservative bank leaders to embrace technology. So, embrace it personally, redefine how it looks in the way you look at it in your organization. I'm going to talk more about all of these, creating a baseline, and then the process and consistent adherence to that process. We found that through the Rockefeller habits. And those Rockefeller habits increase available time because of the way the process is put in place. So I'm going to talk about things that it's going to require some time. And you're going to find that time through the Rockefeller habits. So I'll share with you how. Embrace technology personally. There's 3 things I recommend you do. Know your company's IT, understand technology generally, and then use it personally. So, with a little extra time, can you spend some time on the front line in the trenches of the intersection where your customers and your systems intersect? How easy is it to accumulate information about your customers and put that into your system and ensure that information flows through? There's a lot of variance in community banking, and depending on the total assets in that organization, what type of auditing you're going to have. But still, those things that I've recently done this, and sat in the front trench of the intersection where that technology is coming, where that information is coming, and how do I get that into my system? From a marketing perspective, very interested in collecting as much information as I can about the people we work with. I want to customize communication to you, about you, for you, specifically to you. How easy is that? I was watching a documentary on World War I, trench warfare. You had 3 trenches. You had the first trench, the second trench, and the third trench. And the soldiers would rotate between the 3. We'll call it go-to-market, the go-to-war strategy hadn't changed in a long, long time. We did the same thing. We fought the same way we've always fought. After that third trench, there was about a mile to the closest village, and that's where the leadership resided. And in that village, The leadership didn't stay in tents or the local shacks. They took the mansions. They had the best wine, the best food, and lived comfortably. My hypothesis is if they spent some time in that first trench, they might have reevaluated how we go to market, how we go to war. The technology in killing people versus the go-to-market philosophy were disconnected. And the leadership had no idea. Get on the front line, get in the trenches, understand the intersection. The second thing is understand the 101 of technology, the 101 of security. There's a large bank CEO invested heavily in a disaster recovery solution. Of course, a disaster struck and the solution didn't provide the solution it promised. A big, big problem. So we came in and helped him, and he said, I want to be involved in this. I want to understand how this is going to work. I want to understand how this is going to lay out. Show me a diagram. It was just painful for him. He's a CEO. He's not technically literate. And it was painful for our engineers talking to him in a way that is hard to communicate. And so we put a topology together. That is a map that shows how the DR solution is going to work. He's like, I don't understand that. Make it simpler so I understand it. So we did, and he understood it. What happened was he gained credibility with our firm. We knew he was invested. What also happened is people, his employees saw him invest time. They knew he was invested. They're ready for the next disaster. And then third, use it yourself. Anybody have Uber? Anybody use Uber? Lots of people. Remember the first time you downloaded the app and the first time you were going to use it? And you went, wow! Aha! The aha moment occurred. It was liberating. I was in New York at a conference and still used Uber, even though there were cabs everywhere. It was easier to get a cab, but for me, with paperwork and filing the receipts and all of that, Uber was just easier. Celebrated my 15th wedding anniversary last December, and I used to be really good at this. I used to be proactive and would get great gifts, a lot of sentiment, a lot of thought, a lot of time. And as life goes on, my wife and my 3 kids, we're just not quite like we used to be. And I found myself the day before my 15th anniversary with this moment of panic. And normally I would be able to go to the store and come up with something good and spend a little more than I normally would because I was guilty and save the day. But I looked at my schedule the next day and there's no way. I don't have any time. So I downloaded Amazon Prime. 15th wedding anniversary is crystal. I like to align. The first one's paper. 15th is crystal. I found a crystal pendant that I knew my wife would love. Had it delivered to my office the next day. Came home with flowers and a beautiful gift. And Amazon Prime saved my marriage. Didn't save it. A lot of amazing stuff. I got this Apple Watch for Christmas. It was a gift from my in-laws, and I downloaded an app for health. So it monitors my steps, watches my heart rate, my sleeping, and it also told me to breathe. And I thought it was hilarious. And then I breathed. And I thought, oh, that's what they meant. The shallow breath. After that deep inhalation, I felt anxiety leave, and it was the aha moment that app provided me. You measure things that are important. You want to be proactive and see the issue before it occurs. Measure your health. See the issues before they occur and address them. You're going to have a long, happy, healthy life. Use technology personally to find the aha moment. The second is redefine IT. I was a big fan of Abraham Maslow in high school. What resonated with me was two things. One was self-actualization, achieving my potential. The other thing that resonated with me was the hierarchy of needs, meaning I need to satisfy the foundation before I move to the next level, and then satisfy that level before I move to the next level, and satisfy that. The premise is, if you're physiologically speaking, water, food, sleep, if I'm starving, I can't focus on my potential. Or safety, if I'm running from a bear, I'm not interested in beautiful sunsets and my potential. I'm running for my life. And if you're not a Maslow fan, maybe you're a Dr. Stephen Covey or Benjamin Franklin fan in their productivity pyramid. The same concept where governing values are at a foundation and moving up that to daily tasks. You have to have the foundation built before you move forward. Made me think and create what I call the hierarchy of IT, starting with, we'll call it operational maturity at the bottom. Banks are notoriously great at policy, standards, and procedures. Sometimes, though, those policies, despite all the IT audits, there are some blind spots there. It's kind of like, physiologically speaking, I can have water, food, and sleep. I can sleep a couple hours, eat Twinkies, and drink Coke, and check that off the box. But if I'm trying to perform at an elite level, I've got to refine my water, my hydration. I've got to refine my diet. I've got to refine my sleep to an elite level. So there's different levels within that foundation. Second is security. People say, well, isn't security really one of the foundational components? Well, it is, but if you don't have the security, the policy, standards, and processes in place, you can have the best perimeter security solution known to man, but eventually, without the right procedures, it will become vulnerable. And then projects, as mentioned, the DR solution, the cloud integration, the end unit systems, the voice over IP communication solution, storage, integrated, route switch. So many times we see investments at high levels, big dollars spent that never realize the ROI, and often you can point to the foundation. And then you get into what we look at as your money-making opportunity, your core application. Your core application, we survey and hear almost 9 times out of 10. I wish we could spend more time on our core application because that's where we generate revenue. But we always find ourselves in some reactive posture, doing something, putting out some fire that draws resources away from maximizing our ability to put it in 5th or 6th gear in that core application. And then finally, with all of those things met, then you can explore your advanced technologies, Internet of Things, big data, machine learning. And ultimately what this becomes is a concept called bimodal. How do I maximize what I've got today, and then at the exact same time explore for the future? It's all based on that foundation. Bimodal means I'm maximizing my current technology, the current technology of the day, and I'm preparing for the next technology. And then we're talking about creating a baseline. So, how do you measure IT? How many times have you invested in technology and find just couldn't quite maximize our ROI on that investment? Ziegler says if you don't know your target, you'll hit it every time. And so in technology, we spend a lot of time understanding what are the blind spots. banks are, as an industry, above average and often great at measuring stuff. EBITDA, net income, ROA, employee costs, even efficiency components. But there are blind spots in the technology that prohibit organizations from taking that next step, that foundational layer. Call it operational maturity. And operational maturity is a system of 3 characteristics: operational scalability, governance and controls, and strategic alignment. Those 3 characteristics have a total of 15 traits, questions about each individual characteristic, which are measured by a level 1 to a level 5. Unconscious incompetence, I don't know what I don't know, to not only do I have it all down, locked down, level 4 is I have very little flexibility. This is the way it is. And if you have flexibility in some of the ways you approach technology and you're not a level 5, those are gaps that are going to cause issues. However, when you achieve level 5, flexibility can increase. It's almost like a black belt in the martial arts, if you're familiar. So those 3 categories, I'm going to focus just on this one, just to give you a look. And you can follow along and you could rate yourself on how I'm going to go through this quickly because it can get deep. And each question is weighted. But if we were doing a GPA and there's 4 questions in strategic alignment, and I rate myself a 3 on each of them, 3 times 4 is 12, divided by the number of questions is 4, my GPA is a 3. Or my OML is a 3. So, how does your organization train your employees on the technology used in your organization? I was talking with a $2 billion bank earlier this week, and he says, we've got training programs almost every month, continual training on a regular basis on our core application and on our secondary applications. There is a formal documented technology training process, and the training continues quarterly. How does IT support revenue growth? This is an interesting one to me, particularly from my marketing perspective. In opening new business opportunities for your organization, are you using technology to open new lines of revenue streams, new business opportunities? At a OML 1, you view IT as an expense. God, I want to avoid any spending in technology as long as I can. I want to maximize the use out of our 8-year-old server for another year or 2. Or, new lines of business are being created as a direct result of that IT innovation, and that there's measurable revenue growth as a result. How does your organization manage vendors? Level 1 with a handshake. Level 5 with multi-year agreements with established measure requirements, and I've got a secondary vendor in case the proverbial milk truck hits the first. This is such a sophisticated question. Does your organization measure its operational efficiency and effectiveness performance? Each of these questions are weighted. I gave you a simplistic GPA type of equation to determine where you fit into this, but each of these questions are weighted. And it gets very sophisticated. And, formal SLA, service level agreement, meaning we have an agreement, meaning that we have between 3 to 4 minutes required in response to an employee with an IT issue. And that we've got a 15-minute requirement that issue is resolved or escalated. Are those in place? So that'll give you an understanding of how that foundation, that OML, is built. And this last piece is the process and consistent adherence to that process. J.D. Rockefeller, if he was alive today and still represented 2% of the American GDP, would be worth about $350 billion, more than Buffett and Gates. Obviously a pioneer. A gentleman named Vern Harnish took his habits that made him successful and put them into a book called The Rockefeller Habits. Organization I'm with has been following the Rockefeller Habits for 8 years or so. We have a BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal. We have a one-page strategic plan. Every single person in our company has KPIs, key performance indicators. Every single person. Each one of those KPI, every single KPI is aligned with that long-term BHAG. Today, every day, we have a 15-minute stand-up huddle in each of our departments. Individuals share their KPIs, and is there anything that's going to disrupt their achieving their KPI? If there is, they call it a roadblock. They deal with it every day in that meeting. They eliminate the roadblock. What that does, according to Vern Harnish, is this system is built to give leadership less time dealing with the operations side of the business. That leadership then is not tethered to their desk anymore, that can get out into the market, keep their ear to the ground, and understand exactly what their customers are doing. I see in banking communities, bank leaders typically above average in doing this. Bank leaders are typically good at engaging the market, understanding what their customers want. But it also means I'm using some of that time to understand what's coming down the pike from a technology perspective. I'm creating alliances in fintech. I'm understanding from a government official standpoint, where is the regulatory boundaries with my organization and maybe some blockchain solutions. I'm spending time bimodally making sure that the current situation in my organization is well established and well maintained. And at the same time, I'm looking towards the future. And as a leader, there's no one more qualified than you to build those alliances in the community and in the nation to determine where's my opportunity. How do I truly know my payment solution, my online banking solution is better than our competition's? How do I know? This is how you know. You spend time on the front lines learning, hearing, and listening. So those are the 4 conservative steps bank leaders can take to embrace this disruption, this technology revolution. Because if you don't, there's 2 guys, John and his brother, who went to a bank and said, we're looking at some new payment type of solutions. And they found the whole process cumbersome. So they invented their own called Stripe, and today they're both worth $1 billion each. And it's happening like that. Startups, great ideas. Not how do we do what we do better? That's not the question anymore. How can it be done differently, easier and faster? Because this is a revolution. It is a disruption of industry. To kind of recap. So embrace IT. This is the difference between success and failure. It's not so much first place, second place, third place anymore. It's survive or not survive. We've seen it. We know it's coming. And now the inflection point is upon us. We've got about 5 years to make a big, big impact in that. Embrace it. Look for that aha moment. Use technology personally and get enthusiastic about it. Be inspired. There was a 75-year-old gentleman at the Tennessee Bankers Association I spoke at a couple of weeks ago. I know because I asked him, how old are you? he said he was inspired by this and opened up and downloaded an Uber app. And from the hotel to the airport, he downloaded the Uber app, got the Uber, knew exactly when the Uber was coming within 3 minutes, took his luggage to the front, the Uber showed up, and so instead of $75 from the airport, or from the hotel to the airport, it was $30. It was an aha moment. Saw him at the airport, that's how I know. And get in the trenches with your organization. Be bimodal. Maximize your current investments in technology. Maximize what you have today. At the same time, see what's coming down the pike. Invest in relationships in what's coming down the pike. And establish a baseline. If you don't know your target, you'll hit it every time. Where do I stand? And I know banking and regulation are synonymous, but this is a little different. Where are the blind spots in your organization that might make future investments a greater value? And then establish a process. Banking, again, way above average versus industry in general. In processes, but are we establishing the processes that allow leadership to truly get in front of the organization and to ensure that the cadence with that daily huddle, it's almost like a coxswain in a rowboat yelling, stroke, 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 where everybody's pulling in the same direction, is established in your organization. And with this, you can lead your organization through this digital disruption and ultimately to a legacy. And it's harder than ever. In the late 50s, early 60s, the S&P 500, if you were on the S&P 500, you could expect to be there for about 60 years. Today, you can expect to be there no more than 15. Things are changing. The tradition is changing. Embrace it. What's the one company? Last question. What's the one company on the S&P 500 that was there in its inception that's still here today? There today. Who said that? Good one. All right. Mini bottle. If you have any questions,